So I'm going to quickly introduce Eve and then I'll let her get started. So Eve Blossom, her background in a nutshell is she has a master's in architecture from Tulane University. She has business administration background. She studied business administration at the graduate level. She has a love of textiles and a socially conscious agenda, and that essentially frames the work that she's been doing over the last 10, 15 years, let's say. So in 2004, Eve started Lulan Artisans as a for-profit social venture that connects producers within the textile industry in Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and India with buyers and designers around the world. So that's you guys. Lulan Artisans use design thinking to reinvent the supply chain and work to generate profits for themselves, but also for the many people around the world that they trade with and support. They connect weavers with designers, but they also create viable livelihoods for those they trade with by providing benefits specific to each community, from housing allowances to daycare centers, among many other very specific tailored benefits. The company teaches their artisan partners how to negotiate fair trade prices for their work, what kind of design trends are driving buyers' decisions now, and why and how they should form cooperatives to stay successful in business long term. In addition to changing the world for the better, Eve also recently published this book, Material Change, which is in our library and is an excellent resource for you guys in interior design, but also any student interested in social change. So please join me in welcoming Eve to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So how many here are designers? Would it be pretty much correct to say almost the whole room? Is that right? How many people are not designers in the room? Okay. Well, I want to talk tonight about a designer's voice and what that means. What does it mean to have a designer's voice? I've been pondering this a lot this past year as I wrote a book, and then I went around and I spoke around, toured around a book, and I kept speaking a lot, and I kept thinking, well, you know, talking about these issues and doing the work that I do is wonderful, but what does it really mean to really talk about these issues? And I realized I came full circle. I came back to saying I'm really a designer, and my voice is as a designer. So a designer is also inherently I always say this, a disruptive entrepreneur, a problem solver, a cultural builder, a relationship builder, a maker, and a voice for change. And a designer's voice articulates change, but more importantly, it delivers change. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today. Is about it. The designer's work actually shows up, and the voice shows up in the work itself. That's what I really think after going through having all this book and traveling all that, and I came back to the point of saying what we're doing when we design is really, that's where we're making the biggest change. So I wanted to talk about how I started my career. I think you heard a little bit about this as an architect. Working in Vietnam, I was there in 1995 where I overheard a conversation by two European men, and one of them was meeting later that night a young girl whose father had sold her for sex. And I was unsuccessful in changing that outcome for that little girl that night. But what happened was I realized that, wow, human trafficking is a big deal. I mean, I didn't know anything about it. Remember, I'm a designer. What did I know about human trafficking? And why was I going to research human trafficking and get involved in it when I knew nothing about it? And what was my role as a designer? And I realized as I was doing my research about human trafficking that artisans are at risk of falling into human trafficking because their incomes are below poverty level, usually. Remember, this is 1995. So when I did all this research, I found, wow, you could really make a difference if you gave these people economic options. because people make desperate decisions only when they only have one or two options. And if you have more economic options, then you're in a better place. So it just made sense to me. And if you looked at human trafficking, what is it? It's a marketplace. And what better way than looking at human trafficking as a marketplace and really combating it with an economic other marketplace? Because people were looking at it at that time as a social issue. It is a big, big social issue, as you can see. It is growing like, it's just growing so big, so fast. It's one of the largest growing illicit trades, more than weapons and more than drugs. So it is overwhelming to think about getting involved in doing this kind of work. But these are the people I work with, some of the people I work with. And I just wanted to talk about how when you're thinking about design, we always think about design as a product. And design is so much more than that. And you guys know about design thinking, and you guys know about design systems thinking. But this is the most exciting time to be alive as a designer. And that's because every system we know is broken. Tell me a system that's not broken. Okay, we can go as far as the educational system and healthcare system and things like that. But I mean, really, every system is broken. And so because of it, there's never been a better time to have a designer's eye or designer's way of looking at things that is needed. Down in Silicon Valley, there's actually a design investment fund that someone started because this man believes that if you have design skills and business skills, that those are the founders that he wants to invest in. He thinks those are the types of people that are going to really move businesses forward in the right way, to be integrated in thinking about the whole supply chain as we talk, or value chain. So I collaborate with artisans around the world as partners. They're my partners, so I collaborate with them. And the reason I bring this up is because people always think of this as a supply chain, and I call it a relationship chain. And the reason is that because you really are thinking about a supply chain, isn't that kind of a crazy word to use? I know we all know what that means, right? If I say supply chain, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But doesn't that make you squeamish just to even use the word? Supply? It's one direction. It sounds awful to me. So if it were a relationship chain, and you think of every process as a real advantage, an opportunity to have a different type of relationship, then I think you can really change the way that we do work, the way that we do think about slave labor in our markets, or what's going on with fair trade, how things are sewn, what's it mean to the environment, what does it mean when you ship it, why are you using local materials, or are you shipping something in, it's getting processed and then being shipped out. So you have to think about all these things. And we've reached a place in the world where we have to think of it very, very carefully, because we only have this one earth, and we cannot do it the way that we've been doing it. There's just no way. As we all know, it's very unsustainable. This brings me to, and I had such a great intro. There's a lot of pieces I don't even have to tell you about. So I did start a company in 2004. I waited since 1995 when I first looked at human trafficking and was working in Vietnam, and I did a market research to see, like, well, if I worked with artisans and I did these kinds of products that I'm going to show you right now, would I be able to have a market? And I realized I didn't. That if I started a company in 1995, it actually would in 2 years probably go under. So timing is really important to think about when you start a company. So every 2 years I kept researching, 1997 and 1999, and then there's this thing that happened, this kind of green movement. So the fair trade was growing bigger, small, in small steps, but it was growing bigger. And this big wave called the green movement happened, and I thought, oh yeah, I bet I can ride these coattails and actually create products and find a market. And so I'm just going to hand these to you guys so you can see these. So we work with over 650 weavers, dyers, and spinners in Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, and India. And we, like I said, we collaborate. As a designer, I know that this is the best way that I can use my expertise to to work with these artisans. This is a point I always try to make, is that you want to align yourself in the right way. So if there's a cause that happens to grab you and move you and won't let you go, that's what I always say, is that, human trafficking happened to be my thing that stopped me to think about what I was doing and what I wanted to do with my expertise. And when I did this research and I found that I could actually make a difference using design, it made sense, everything aligned. And they teach you that in business school. If things align, then you know that that's the way to go. If I were to walk up to a farmer and say, okay, so I know you're at risk of falling into human trafficking, what do I know about farming? What do I know about seeds, right? So if there's a cause that really grabs you, that's like you're thinking about it, it's the one thing that keeps you up at night, or it's the thing that every time you're designing, you're like, but I care about education. No, I really care about the homeless. Everyone in here has that one thing, right? That's just bubbling up inside and keeps popping its head up again and again and again. That's your path, right? That's telling you right then and there that there's something there for you that you need to look at about you wanting to do around it. And can you do it with the design? And the answer is absolutely yes, you can. But, it doesn't matter if you are thinking of being in a big organization, in a big corporation, or if you're going to be in a small startup, or if you're going to be in a very traditional kind of design situation. You can do this work in every single place. There are wonderful ways to impact big organizations in just being in a vertical place in your business. So let's say you're working for a big company like, I don't want to use Walmart. Why do I always think of Walmart? Can someone throw out a name of a big corporation that you know of? GE. Okay, GE. Thank you very much. Okay, so GE, right? So let's say you're working at GE and you're a designer there and you're helping them with some new products that they're doing. And they are trying to do some cost-effective, with energy saving. Well, let's say you come up with an idea that really would solve a bigger problem. You can actually go to some of your people in your group that you're working with and say, I've just come upon this, I've designed this. And there have been companies like GE, like other people, that will actually want to move forward on some of these things. So I bring that up because we all think of this as we have to be disruptive entrepreneurs in startups. And that's what I'm doing, but that's not the only way to do it. I've got tons of friends that are disruptive entrepreneurs right now that are doing it in big companies. And there are some great examples of those kind of companies, Patagonia and all kinds of other ones that are doing it fully integrated in their whole system of who they are and their product offering. So this is one of our weaving centers. I just wanted to bring up as, when you're talking about starting these kinds of companies, remember you have to think of it as a designer and as a business person. So I told you as a designer how I felt aligned was to work with the artisans. But as a businesswoman, I know that using untapped great resources like artisans who are already skilled, trained, and organized. So they're already skilled with unique talents, trained with centuries-old techniques, and self-organized in these cooperatives. So we don't start these cooperatives, we actually partner with them. So that's a really important point because they're already showing self-initiative. So that's a great partner to have on the ground. So we work with all kinds of weavers, as you can see, and we pay fair trade. We're sustainable in six ways. I always call it 6D. So we pay fair trade wages. Their children get an education. We use local materials. The families get housing stipends through the weaving centers. We use natural dyes and low-impact dyes. And deferring to their expertise, we do not impose any external methods. They are incredible master weavers, master dyers, and really what they bring to the table is 80% of what is needed. And what I bring to the table with the, understanding trends, color trends, understanding design and what's contemporary, what's needed in the market, what was sell in the market, we bring 20%. And I really do mean that. I mean, they really do come with a lot more skills that are more needed to do this kind of work. Believe me, I've tried to learn how to weave. It's not good, not good. Setting up a warp is really hard. Weaving back and forth is easy if it's one color, but when you start to see the ikat I showed you and the brocading, that's hard work. And that they're counting. I don't know if you saw some of those, but they're actually counting why they're like singing, and why there's chickens, and why the kids are running around, and they're being able to count. And I can't do it. I've tried. It's incredible what these weavers and dyers can do. So I just want to show you some of the stuff that we do. This is a throw. This is a brocade detail at the end of a drapery, bedding and pillows. And this is a ikat, as you see, mixed with a solid silk. And these are just sitting really thick floor pillows. So this is another ikat of ours. So I wanted to, one thing I don't want to miss out is on how we work really on the ground. We have this business model in the back of our book. It's an infographic. Let's see, it's an infographic. It shows how we use design on the ground. So what's great about this infographic is it shows how we collaborate, how we infuse design, how we use what I call effective redundancy, how we use diversify the risk, and how we scale. So I want to talk to you about those kinds of things because I think that's a little bit different in how our model is. So containers of collaboration is what I say these days. I don't think we're building companies anymore. I think we're building containers of collaboration. And the reason for that is, if you think about it, is if you really collaborate, like we're collaborating, we're partnering, then it's actually a richer way to work. It's more self-sustaining for them, and they're learning skills. It's just a much better way to work. And when we're collaborating in that way, it actually has an invitation of its own. People really want to be a part of it. And you start to have like governments coming together with NGOs, but coming together with for-profit companies. So it's really an exciting way to think of your companies, not just your set company. Those days, I think, are very much over, which I'm very excited about. Infuse design. How do we infuse design? Well, the whole idea is to do this technology transfer. And I think you guys have heard of this term before when you talk about technology, right? But the technology transfer we're doing is all about infusing design and business skills inside these cooperatives, so inside these artisans, so it lives within them. So if anything happens to us or their partners, they're fine. They can continue. They've learned all these skills. And that makes it so self-sufficient for the long term. And it's better for everybody. And you want them to be your partner not because they need you, because they want you. So that's really exciting. Effective redundancy, I love talking about this. Apple would love to have effective redundancy in their supply chain, especially when there was the earthquake that was going on in Japan. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but the iPhone was delayed because there was one component that they were sourcing from Japan that they couldn't get for months. So what we call effective redundancy is where we do all of our designs in 2 different countries in different cooperatives. And the reason we do that is, do you guys ever hear about, you might not have, but a couple of years ago, the Bangkok airport was shut down for a couple weeks because there was protesting? Well, we couldn't get our designs out of Thailand. Not possible. But because we did the same design in Cambodia, we could take it through Singapore and ship it that way and not miss a beat. So that's what effective redundancy is. And nowadays, as you can see, like with New York, what happened, they're just talking about this. Everything was centralized with the power. When you have, and everyone's talking about, why are we not doing localized power? Why is it not decentralized? This would have made a huge difference on what just happened in New York. So that's just a good example of, really having that redundancy in your system, but effectively, not so it's wasteful. The other thing I was going to talk about is diversifying risk. So this is the other thing I really like. We do not take 100% capacity of any of our cooperatives. We ask them to diversify their risk by the product type that they do. Is it a pillow? Is it an accessory? Is it for the home? Is it to the trade, a yardage that's unfinished, so they can sell to different markets? And there's a reason, to diversify their risk because, when downturns happen, for example, Target's clothes stopped selling altogether in 2008 and 2009. I mean, they couldn't sell clothes, but their scarves were like going like crazy, and their bags and their wallets. So accessories were like this big thing because people could change or their outfits looked like by just changing their scarves or carrying a different bag. And that costs less than maybe, buying a whole outfit. We diversify risk in the way of who their clients are. So every group has maybe someone from Japan and Switzerland and Australia and Canada and the US, like that, right? So when the downturn happened and I could not make an order, my market stopped. Then the French client or the Swiss client or the Australian client picked up our capacity, right? So when the earthquake happened in Japan, we picked up the Japanese capacity. When the Australian or New Zealanders had their issue, we picked up that capacity. So just to show you that worked really well for keeping them safe. Remember, they need it to be like this. Anytime that it isn't like that, they have to make some dire decisions that could actually put themselves at risk. And then the last thing I'll talk about is scale, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. Because scaling is in so many different ways, and it doesn't have to sit inside your organization. It really doesn't. So if you think about it, you can micro-aggregate, right? So we aggregate by adding different artisan groups, cooperatives, again and again to scale more. We partner, so we collaborate, like I talked about. We incubate. So one of our artisans has an idea for a business, and we help them start it. We mentor. And that's really important too, because it's the best way that you can really share and open source and teach is by mentoring. And then of course we decentralize, meaning that we work with training centers in these countries where they're locally managed and locally owned, so that we can get further out to even more artisan groups. And then there's a really cool thing that started to happen, what I call design sprouts. So this is what happens on the ground is you teach one group and then they tell another group something. So there's a group in Nepal that is using a way that we've set up a loom that's a little bit novel. And it's really interesting to me because we're not working in Nepal. We're nowhere near Nepal. So I was like shocked, and this was fascinating to me. And then I found out the cousin of the aunt of the uncle of the sister of the brother of the in-law, that's how it went. And it ended up in Nepal. And so what I love about these design sprouts is that if you work with these artisan groups, then they actually contextually and locally tell the next group, which tells the next group. And we call these design sprouts. And it's really fun to watch this happen. So I really enjoy that. So this is one of our groups in Cambodia that we work with. So you can see that we hire men and women. And what I want to talk about is where we're going next. So we've had this model. We worked in 5 different countries in Southeast Asia in textiles. And now we're setting our sights even bigger. So we're launching a whole thing called Weave. It is a curated e-commerce design-centric community, and it's to bridge even closer relationships to buyers, designers, and artisans. And we're doing it where it's globally, so we're not just in Southeast Asia anymore, and it's not just textiles. So we're doing things from like jewelry to pottery, recycled goods, everything. So, and it's worldwide. So we're very excited about this, and we're launching it in a couple of months to a very private access. So if you want to know more about it, you go to weavebuilt.com. It's offline right now because we're really doing all this beta work right now on it, but in about a month or so it'll be, you can go and you can sign up and everything else, and then we will be launching. So do keep up with that. That's our big new thing. So I say all the time that it's a wonderful time, like I said, to be a designer, but to really think really broadly about what design means. I actually use charrette. I don't know if you probably do know the term charrette, but I really do believe that you can charrette anything, and you can use design in any way. And the way that my business runs is there's a business model underneath a business model underneath a business model, because it's different in each culture. And so you have to really think about how design hits everything. And I think of it as almost like, what if we were spies, right? and we had our little flashlights, and we could look and see the tracks of design. And what we would see in the tracks of design is that it is dispersed everywhere. It is in the way you structure relationships, it's the way that you structure your business, and it's the way that you use design in the products and in the process. So what I really like at this point in time is for me to get off the stage and come down and ask any questions, or have you guys ask anything about the company and the model, or anything you're working on yourself. I know there are questions. Yes? Are you a member of the Fair Trade Federation? I am not. That's a very good question. I am not a member because I think it was too limiting for what I stay away from labels right now. Not to say that I should or shouldn't. I think that makes a lot of sense for a lot of companies to use labels and to be the fair trade. Label is a very good one, but to me it's limiting. I think we're so much more than just fair trade.
I don't know if you can talk about, but I'm just curious how you establish your wages, then your fair trade wages.
Sure. So actually each country is different, right? And it gets so crazy, even India is the craziest. You can actually be working in one area of India, literally in one area of Delhi, and you go work into another area of Delhi, and it's different wages. It's based on entirely different things. It's very interesting. So you have to actually know what the average wage is of each country in the village, the town, and the city. So it's really important. And then, you have to then know what you want to pay your weavers, and we're way above what fair trade is. And what we do is we pay a salary wage per month, and then we do an incentive per meter past that. So because have the incentive if they really want to work hard. And there are some women who just make double what some other women make because they really they're fast, they're good. They just really want to earn more money because there's a wedding going to happen, in a couple months. So, yeah. Next. Yes?
How do you find your artisans?
So, I cheated. Because I lived there. I lived there in 1995 and 96, and I was actually, for 3-4 years before, was actually traveling throughout Cambodia and these countries. And I loved the textiles, so I started just, for myself, wanting my own collection. So I was visiting them and buying them up, and I couldn't believe the incredible work they did. And so I just fell in love with them. And then when all this happened in 1995, I realized that, these guys are great and I can work with them, but I knew groups already that I really liked. And then what was really cool is knowing these groups, and I started talking and working with them, they were open to introducing me to the next groups. Because interestingly enough, one group has their cousin in another group. It's really fun in how that works. So, that's a great question. Yes?
How did your background in architecture inform your ability to take on this path?
100%. I would say my architecture degree, the way I think, who I am in the world, that's why I call it now a designer's voice. And the reason that is that I thought, a lot of people tell me that I use a lot of business, and I know that I do, but there's not one moment that I'm not using what I learned in school at Tulane. I think back on my studio, I think back on every single thing we did, the charrettes we did, and it's so much my design. I went to business school and I dropped out of business school. I didn't finish because I was like, okay, I'm glad I got the financials, and the marketing was really important. I didn't get that in architecture school. But beyond that, really it's my architecture degree. It's my design. It's so prepared me to really think in the way that I think. And I'm telling you that the whole world needs so much more of that. It really does, in everything that's going on. So I just feel like it's a wonderful skill set to have. I know that my business is integrated in there. I do know that. But Rosalie, who works with me, who's from CCA, and she's an employee, wouldn't you say that most of the time it feels like it's more design than business in what we're doing?
Yeah, I think so.
In the kind of skill sets we're using, and
Yeah, I think what I noticed most is the sort of like prototyping aspect of it. I studied industrial design here
Right. That's right.
Rather than just looking at numbers and charts and being like, this is going to work.
Yeah. Next question?
I was gonna ask you.
Sure.
And what is the design process from like calling your cooperatives up and asking them to make something? How do you start with a design and send it to them? Do you visit them to see what techniques they have? Do they do some design and
Right.
you review it? That process.
We know it's actually that infographic in the book. The book shows like how we do it on the ground. So we assess a cooperative to see where they are and what their skill sets are, and do they have a well? Do they have access to water and things like that? And then what we do is we assess them, and then we have them assess us. Because it's really important in a partnership not just to think, well, are they capable, but do they really want to work with us? Do we have what they want? Are they in a place where it makes sense for us to partner? And then we do a design brief. And we say, okay, now we're going to do all these designs, knowing what we want to either do drapery or pillows or bedding, or what the outcome is that we want to use it for. So as we start to know the scale of the textiles and what we want to do. And then we start letting them go with that idea. We did have textile consultants the first 2 to 3 years, very famous ones, Laura Guido Clark and Michael Cook. And they helped me with the first 2 or 3 collections. But then they got savvy enough, the artisans do, that I can work with them directly, and they come up with great ideas, or we come up with good ideas. Another way that we've been doing is doing textile competitions. We just did a second one with Dwell, and the first one we did in 2010. We crowdsourced, it was so much fun, a textile competition, and we did it with Creative Commons. It was the first textile competition online, crowdsourced, Creative Commons. And the whole idea was, and we trademarked it, no design gets left behind. And the reason is that, you always have these like competitions, and people put in we had 1,651 designs within 2.5 weeks. Wow. Right? Crowdsourcing it. But in order to do that, we wanted that. We wanted that kind of number. And I only picked 2 or 3, that won. And so what we can do with all the rest of them? So all the designers signed that if they were going to be part of this, that their designs could be Creative Commons, meaning then we had a database for artisans around the world that could download these designs. That would be the latest designs with the latest trends of color and make a huge difference for them. So no design got left behind, and it really made a huge difference on a lot of artisans that I'm not working with, like groups that just, knew about this and followed us and actually downloaded and used the designs. So there's many ways to kind of do it.
Have you seen those actually produced?
Yeah, I have. I have some of them. It's interesting, which I really like this, is that a lot of them ended up in Europe and in Australia. Not the artisans who were doing the work, but the artisans themselves. Some of them were in Guatemala, where I'm not even working, and the Philippines, and Indonesia. Some of the countries I'm going to go to eventually. But it was those groups that were actually downloading, and then they were having relationships with Australia and Europe mostly.
And that also becomes a source for you now.
Yes.
For tracking your designers around the globe where you're expanding your enterprise.
Exactly. So that's exactly what we're doing now with Weave, is those are the first groups that we would go to. And we're trying to get diversified, so we're not doing with textiles right now as much, but they will be the first groups we go to because they've already started doing these kinds of designs and wanting to do this. Very exciting. So we will do more of those. With Weave, we'll be doing more competitions like that. But what I'm excited about is, with Rosalie's help and with the whole team's help, is we're actually looking at all kinds of different mediums. So we're working with pottery, which I know nothing about, and Rosalie knows a lot more about it. So I'm fascinated learning more about mediums I haven't been exposed to. Slip cast and all this other, throwing. And so I know some of it, but I didn't know any of it. So we're working with groups in the United States as well. So the whole idea is job creation is needed right here now. So in 1995, when I had this idea to do job creation and job stability around human trafficking, that was one thing. But now it's 2012, and we need jobs right here in the United States. So we're working with U.S. artisans in North Carolina, in Austin, in Seattle, in San Francisco. So it's really exciting, really exciting. So, and I should say that we have one person in the audience. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing, how you're going to be working with us?
Yeah, well, recently I met with Eve, with one of my partners in design, and we've been block printing some textiles based around Moroccan design and Moroccan architecture, actually. So soon we'll be having another meeting with Eve and developing a collection that we can have block printed through her connections or her artisan connections.
And we'll have it on Weave. So this is what we're trying to do. We're really trying to really include, so anybody here who's got any great ideas, you're working in different mediums, come find us, really. Oh, on that note, I should have put up my email and my email is Eve, E-V-E, at Lulan, Lulan.com, and I'm on Twitter at Eve Blossom, just like it sounds, blossom like a flower. So yeah, follow me on Twitter. Email me if you're working in any medium. There's no medium that it needs to be handmade, artisan, what have you, but job creation right here would be so cool. And also, you don't have to be the maker. You can also just be the designer, because what we're doing on our website is having some people just design. So we have a famous, do you guys know, you may know Ted Berner. So he's one of our designers, and he's a furniture designer. So he's well known as a furniture designer. And so I wanted to get him involved in this. And we were sitting around dinner one time, and we're talking about, he's like, oh, furniture and shipping and insurance and heavy. And I was like, you know what? We should have you design in recyclable paper. The lightest thing, so different from furniture, what you're used to. And he was like, oh, yeah, this sounds great. So that's what he did. So that's what we're working on right now. So if think about it, think of any medium, think of yourselves as either you're an artisan and you want to be the maker, and in this way they want to be the maker, or you just want to be the designer. And so eventually we will make this where we're going to RISD and Tulane and all over to all the schools, and definitely CCA, of course. So yes.
So where are your objects and fabrics sold, retail or?
We do. We sell in 3 different markets. We sell to the trade is our biggest market, because that's what I did learn in business school was they say do what you know, start with what you know best. So the market I knew best was designers. So I went to the trade, interior design, and I sold finished home products, or we sell by the yard, so people can make anything out of it to interior designers. And then we also sell wholesale to companies like ABC, Carpet and Home. So that's what we do. So that's wholesale. And then we sell online. But we're really looking forward to Weave, because we've been selling so small online. It hasn't been one of our biggest, movements yet at all. And with this whole new idea, and it's a novel way to integrate story with buying actual product. So we have a patent pending for it. That's how novel it is, and we'll see. We'll just, once we launch, we'll see how it goes. So I'd like to know if there are anybody here who's thinking about doing any of this kind of work. Yeah? Can you tell me more about in what way?
All of it, really. I'm very interested. I actually took a course last semester here at CCA called Local Fiber Incubator, and it was an amazing class.
Wow.
And it's a class, it's an interdisciplinary course, and it's actually taught by a fashion professor and one of her colleagues. And the class teaches about sustainability locally, on the local level, dealing with cotton farms and wool farms.
Yep.
And the goal for each student was to produce some kind of item using the wool and the cotton from those local farms. And that's kind of in a nutshell what it was, but it really opened up a huge world to me. Sustainability has always been my passion, but also I traveled to South America 2 years ago, and I got to visit a cooperative of women who were leaving and dying, and I was just amazed by their efficiency and just the quality of the work that was produced, and the unfortunate state of their poverty, knowing how talented they were. So I am very much interested in all of this.
That's great.
I'm an interior design student.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else who's thinking about this kind of work or using your background in some way to around even just a cause, if it's not even anything like what my company looks like? Yeah?
I'm a fashion design major, and I've always been interested in actually specifically sex trafficking in Cambodia. I did an internship with a clothing company in Cambodia 2 summers ago.
Okay.
And we worked with local artisans to create products that we can market to specifically traveling women in the U.S. And but yeah, sex trafficking has always been a passion of mine in terms of like thinking of ways that I could impact it and reduce it. But yeah, and specifically I have this lofty dream of having like a clothing company where my textiles would be made in Cambodia, but they would be kind of designed in a way that would be marketable for the fashion industry, and that would be contemporary, but still sticking to traditional Cambodian weaving, and yeah, and then making products and the clothing.
That's not lofty. That's doable. That's doable. That's completely doable. Yeah. What company were you working with?
Wanderlust, Cambodia.
Yep. Yep. I know that. Wonderful.
I was actually curious, what part of Cambodia do you?
We work in different areas of Cambodia. Actually, I probably don't even need this. We work in different areas. We started a lot of our work in the villages and towns and not so much the cities. But we've been doing this for 8 years now.
People are at risk of falling into human trafficking. In the city when there really isn't, or construction work when there really isn't to the land or that kind of thing. So it seems when the urban migration happens, when they're really at risk. So we find ourselves now more outside cities, believe it or not. It's just it's interesting how over the years it's become a little bit more there. So I'm outside Phnom Penh and Siem Reap and even further. Okay. Anyone else?
Well, that's an interesting point. I wonder how much you have explored this expansion of your fabric trade. Have you gone towards fashion? You've stayed within the home industry mostly. Can you do that, and have you thought of that?
You know, fashion is a great category. A lot of people, that's like one of the best categories, I think, to go in. It's not a category I know. You know, designing patterns for clothing. I mean, I could actually get people involved and we could do clothing, but it's a really, we're going into a market where we're selling online, and more so, that's where we're headed. And clothing is harder to sell online if you can't, you know, if it's a brand you know, oh, Aunt Taylor, Zero Petite, or, size 2 or whatever, maybe you feel comfortable, but I think it's kind of a harder market. Now, offline, I mean, I think it is the #1 category that everybody goes into to work on textiles. And it sells really well. But when you tell me that I have to carry inventory of extra small, medium, large, extra large, in every color and every design, and then also have those patterns, it's just not what I do. And it would be something that I would expand into if someone like you started, because this is a good container of collaboration. I don't have to do it. You go to Cambodia, you do it, and I partner with you. That's how you do it.
So there's greater risk in that also, both for the manufacturer and the purveyor in fashion?
In fashion? It's not a greater risk. I mean, I mean, if you look at all the people who started around the same time I went and and there's 1 or 2 companies, I mean, their sales are quite substantial. I mean, they're doing pretty well. It's harder to get off the ground because, like I said, wow, inventory of, you just have to start smaller. You have to say, okay, I'm doing 2 skirts and 2 tops and 1 jacket, and but it can be done. But it's a lot easier, I think, for me to do accessories or the home furnishing. I like the fact that it's a 12 by 18 pillow. And if you want to buy another 12 by 18 pillow, then you'll buy two. You know what I mean? It's easy for me that way. But that's what I'm saying is like what we're doing with Weave is we're partnering with all these other people that know pottery, know glassware, know jewelry, know recyclable goods. And we're help designing that so they understand what they're doing. So it's a great way to, I think, expand in finding people who are just experts, right? You don't have to always be an expert, but so if you're going to start it soon. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So this question is definitely coming from a bit of a naive place. I could be doing more market research myself, which I'm wanting to. But as far as access and affordability is concerned, it really seems like craft and products that are made from on a sustainable level, all locally sourced materials that are being applied, it seems like those goods are really existing on purely a luxury level right now, or in a luxury market. And it seems like that's why we don't have a lot of jobs in those areas as far as like artisans and craft is concerned, happening on a local level. How far away do you think we are from that being sustainable as far as like, markup and marketability is concerned and access?
So I think this is this is a myth, which is awesome that you brought this up.
Okay, great.
And I'll tell you why. So this is where the fashion industry has really gone into this luxury eco fashion thing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a turn off, really.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, which is another reason why I don't want to go there. It's very crowded and it's where everybody went. But the prices are coming down in that market. But what's interesting is if you look at everything else, like, okay, so have you gone to West Elm and seen what they've got there? It's all artisan stuff, right? Okay, so now go to Urban Outfitters and you know what's peppered? Is artisan stuff. Go to Anthropology. What's peppered in there? Artisan stuff. There's very few, I don't know if you can say, there's a lot of companies that are like going in this direction in a big way. West Elm is being so successful at it that they have 2 or 3 stores that are expanding right now. There are not that many of them, so it's, and they're smart during the economy that we have. They were very smart not to overdo. But as stores go, as I've been told by West Elm, they're doing better per square foot in their sales than Pottery Barn. Because Pottery Barn is doing artisan stuff, but isn't known for it like West Elm is. So that's just one example. But really, if you start to look at all these, you'll start to see Anthropology is not cheap. It's not, right? But it's not expensive either. I mean, it's got a mix. But West Elm they're doing it at a very affordable price. So I just some examples.
That's great. Well, thank you.
Yeah. And I walked by Urban Outfitters and I was like, oh, Guatemala, Cambodia, oh, Indonesia. I mean, it was just amazing. I was thinking, wow, I gotta walk these stores more because it's really happening. And I don't know why they're not telling it more. Like West Elm is really telling the story, right?
Well, the thing that I might want to bring, that I really want to bring up actually with Anthropology and Urban Outfitters is that I also know that they will look at traditional designs and then have them produced in China. So it might look exactly like something that's Guatemalan that was actually made in China.
Yeah, I know that Anthropology is not doing that for the most part, and I know that West Elm is not.
Yeah.
Urban Outfitters, I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe it's not happening anymore, but I know that it has in the past.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But I do know a lot about the other two.
Yeah. Well, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And it suggests that it is marketable to that level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And our goal for Weave is to have a lot of our stuff under $100. That is our goal, to have 70 to 80% of our stuff under $100 if, at retail price. So that's our goal. That's where we seem like we're hitting currently.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
So I think we should continue the conversation out in the reception where we have pizza waiting for you guys, and Eve will be with us for another 6 45 minutes, we should be talking after. Thank you, Eve.